And the last thing, the most important piece, is we're going to take the North and never give it back.
I've told you before, I'm a fan. This is our second meeting. You are nice, all right? You are nice with yours, all right?
I just want to shout out to Swift at Swift Sports Network.
What's up, Swift? This is Kyler Gordon. Just want to do a quick shout out to Swift Sports Network with all the latest news on the Bears.
You ain't speaking facts, we don't want to hear it. Yeah, we going for the dub. You are now watching Swift Sports.
The Bears.
What's up, guys? Joined again by my good friend Greg Gabriel, longtime member of the Bears scouting department, lending his knowledge and talent to help the fans out and get a better view of what this draft class was like. Last time we talked, Greg, it was after round one. We talked previewing day 2 of the draft. Now we're going to cover the rest of the draft and what's been going on since. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. Not complaining over here. Maybe complaining about the lack of any kind of common sense with a lot of Bears media guys. All these DJ Moore trade rumors and Cole. Some of that stuff just drives me nuts, man.
Totally ridiculous. I mean, what do you want to call them? Fantasy football GMs? Armchair GMs. I mean, they don't have a clue how you put a team together. They think, you get a couple good players, you got to get rid of the other good ones.
Yeah, 100%. It's just those narratives are kind of just driving me wild. I know it's like this is one of the slowest season parts of the year when it comes to Bears football. After the draft, until you get to training camp, it's kind of the dead zone. Well, we still have OTAs coming up. The big dead zone is after OTAs. But right now, the media they'll make up anything to say. But I did want to get your take, Greg, because like I said, last time we talked, it was after round 1. So we talked about Colston Loveland. I know I might have caught you talking about it a little bit on the Barroom Network, but I don't know if I heard your thoughts on Luther Burden, a guy who, I'll just say it, he's my favorite pick in the draft. I love that guy.
Really good talent, speed guy, plays faster than he times, and he timed 4.41. Everybody thought, I think that there was going to be a running back, but the running back it probably would have been, and Bears will never confirm this, went the pick before Henderson to New England. So now it's a matter of, do you either trade out or do you take the best guy on your board? And, they took just about the entire 7 minutes, so they may have thought about trading out. Again, we'll never know the answer to that. And then finally made the pick. And, when you look at it, you got to look at the whole draft and not one pick at a time. And when you see how everything else came together, it's a hell of a pick.
Man, I love it. I think he was a guy who I talked about it. I was live that day during the draft. And going into the day, I had Luther Burden as the highest rated player on my board out of everyone going into day 2. And I thought, he's probably going to be gone by the time the Bears pick, but my thought was if he falls to pick 39 or 41, the Bears would likely use it as a trade chip because someone would want to come up and get him because he's so talented. And honestly, at that point in my mind, it hadn't crossed my mind that the Bears would actually take him. But after we took him, I was elated. I was like, this guy has a chance. Him and Rome Odunze. And I still love DJ Moore, and I think DJ is going to be a stud for the next 3 or 4 years. But when you look a decade from now, I think Rome Odunze and Luther Burden could be the top 2 Bears receivers on our record books. Those guys are so talented, and I'm just super happy to have both of them here. And Caleb Williams has weapons. There's no excuses. That much is clear.
Oh, God, he's got a ton of weapons. It's interesting, and again, we'll never know the answer. Let's assume they got Henderson at 39.
Mm-hmm.
Would they have taken Burden at 41?
That is what I actually posed that question to someone because I joined there's a couple of kids, a couple guys who they're part of a DePaul radio station. They're going to college at DePaul, and they've watched.
They asked me to come on their show.
Oh, I told
for a couple weeks.
I told him they asked me after, or they told me they asked you after I had did the appearance with him, and I was like, look, man, I don't have a lot of connections, but Greg was the one guy I might have been able to ask for you, but they didn't ask me until after they asked you. So I was like, oh, you missed out. But I went on their show and I told them, because it was the same thing. It was before day 2. It was a couple hours after we did our show. I went and did a show with them, and I told them my prediction, because they asked me, what are your predictions for tonight? And I said, at 39, we're going to take Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins if they're there. And then I said, what I imagine us doing with pick 41 is trading back.
Which is what I thought too. I think we talked about that.
Yep. And so the trade back happened. Unfortunately, we were one pick away from the running back falling to us there. Judkins went a little bit higher than I thought, but I told people all along, Judkins was my RB2. I love that guy. A lot of people are like, Judkins going to fall the 3rd round. I think if either one of those guys were there, we might have picked him. But I think Travion Henderson was the guy we were eyeing, and I've pondered that same scenario myself. If Travion Henderson falls to 39, I think we take him over Luther Burden, and then we see what happens at pick 40. And if Burden is still there at 41, I think we might have grabbed both of them and not traded down, or we might have even got a bigger offer for pick 41 if the team really wanted Luther Burden.
Who knows? Buffalo's got this thing similar to 1920 Bills Drive, and I watched it the other day. You know, being I'm a Buffalonian and my kids are big Bills fans, and they wanted that player. They traded up to get that pick, and that's a player they wanted. And it sounded as if they had previous discussions with Poles about that pick. You know, but it was like, assuming our guy is there, are you willing to move out?
Yeah, that's exactly that's laying the preliminary work, and that's that's what Ryan Poles did in round 1, and that's something else I wanted to talk about, because I think a lot of fans have this misconception that Ryan Poles tried to trade up, because they heard these stories that he did make calls and talk to other teams. What he did was just see what it would cost. At no point were the Bears actively throwing out offers and trying to move up the board. And he said that himself.
I think that's what they wanted people to believe.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But when it came down to it, they weren't willing to offer the picks it took to move up. They didn't make the offers. If they would have, we probably would have moved up. And when it comes to Ashton Jeanty, I do think the even more curious thing that I've thought about a little bit, because I thought, if Jeanty falls to 10, we take him over Colston Loveland, and I was 100% dead set on that. Sitting here today, hearing how they've talked about Colston Loveland, hearing that other teams were trying to trade up for Colston Loveland, hearing just a lot of people call him a new age, like the next, this is what tight ends are going to look like in the NFL going forward. It's the next generation kind of tight end.
They got to change the position title.
He's more offensive weapon. I put him as OW. He's offensive weapon.
Cole Kmet is a tight end. This guy is not.
Yep. But do you think if Ashton Jeanty would have fell, do you think that there was any chance they would have taken Loveland over Jeanty?
You know, I can't really answer that.
I know that one's tough.
But it sounded as if Loveland was, you know, just listen to everything they say, that was the guy they were eyeballing all along.
100%. Yeah, and that's exactly.
I don't remember if I said it to you, but if you want to figure out who the Bears like, look at the guys they never talk about.
Yeah, especially this year. I mean, and we've seen in the past too. They would hype up Jalen Carter and then not draft him. I got to figure out. They told me the Bears went live at the same time as us. I wonder if they're doing press conferences today. Someone in the chat, let me know what the Chicago Bears live is right now, because I didn't see that.
I can open up my Twitter account and it'll say.
I could have opened. Someone in the chat will know. So I was like, my chat's always got my back. I was like, leave it to the Bears to go live at the exact same time our show is. They know we do this every 2 weeks. Bears, you got to do better.
Ben Johnson talking.
Oh, it's Ben Johnson talking? Okay. Yeah. I'll definitely catch that afterwards and get it. But yeah, that's definitely Chicago Bears live right now. We do have our, the mini camp this weekend, the rookie mini camp. I know we signed a quarterback last night to come in, or invited a quarterback to camp for the tryouts. Right. And so that's starting, I believe,
and the
tomorrow.
Kid was there last year. What was his name? Reed.
Austin Reed is back as well. Yeah.
He can. Now here's the rule with that is this guy never got on the 53. So he is eligible. So all those guys who were on the practice squad that never got brought up, like the big offensive lineman from Canada, Benedict, he's there. There's about 5 or 6 guys who were on the practice squad last year who are taking part in this thing this weekend.
Yeah, okay, yeah. If Ian Wheeler was healthy, I would expect him to be there as well, but I did not see him listed, so I don't know if Ian Wheeler is going to be participating or not.
Well, his name would have been listed if he was.
Yeah,
he's probably hasn't reached that point yet. I think he's 8 months out, 7 months out, and he probably be lucky if he's ready for camp.
Yeah, I'd say realistically the goal for him would be getting healthy for training camp. But when it comes to a torn ACL, injuries like that, it takes
everybody's different too.
Yeah, and a lot of times it takes that full year to get back to yourself, and some guys even 2 years. So we've seen it. Everyone's different. Everyone's body recovers a little bit differently. But I think it's important to not put too much onto Ian Wheeler's plate at this moment.
No, I agree with that, and he can learn. So, and at the running back position, the easiest position to learn in any offense. I mean, you can literally bring a guy in on Tuesday and play him on Sunday, and get some productivity out of him. But it's at different positions, the wide receiver, some of those. It's gonna take a few weeks of practice. Defensive guys, defensive line, you can play them. They just got some simple rules.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing, I know this has been a big topic of discussion, Ozzie Trapillo. He's a guy who Ryan Poles seems to say he's going to start on the left side out at left tackle. He played more at right tackle. That was his better position in college. But he is a guy, I believe he has the traits to potentially play left tackle. You're at least going to let him get the reps over there while Braxton's recovering. What do you think about his potential on the left side?
I hadn't done a lot on him. The first stuff I did was from the Senior Bowl, and it was just, what I saw from the one-on-ones. And, it was, not that great, not that out. But then when you put on the tape and you watch his game tape at right tackle, and really the last 2 years, he's almost boring. He's so good. He doesn't make mistakes. He comes off the ball well. He's, for a guy that's 6'8", he can bend his knees. He's got snap in his hips, keeps his legs moving on contact, looks to finish every play, consistent pass blocker, doesn't have seem to have problem with speed or counter moves. He does everything well. Athletically, he is easily has the footwork and the athleticism to play over on the other side. But you're reversing everything. And he's done it, though. But he hasn't done it since 2022. So 23 and 24 is on the right side. But, instead of having he's got his right foot back and his right hand down, playing right tackle. Now it's his left hand down and his left foot back. So his kicks, everything's the exact opposite. The hand placement is the exact opposite. The footwork is the opposite. It's just getting him down so it's second nature. Now, he says he's been working on it since January. And I heard just the other day, I was watching something, I don't remember what it was, but he was working with the Patriots' old line coach, what the dog barking at for. But anyway, the old Patriots line coach who was on Belichick's staff for a long time, the older guy, and one of the best in the business, and I can't think of his name, but that's the guy he was working with to prepare for the combine and the draft. And so that was a really good coach to teach him, to mentoring him. So there's no question that he can play. It's where's he going to play? I can't. You got your.
Got you. Yep. I was fixing. Did the echo get any better for you, by the way?
Well, let me talk. No, it's gone away.
Yeah. Okay. It looked like there was for some reason there was an update on StreamYard and they'd unchecked the echo cancellation box. So the chat was hearing it too. Apologies to anyone in the chat who heard an echo at the beginning of that. We have got it worked out now. There should not be any more echo. When it comes to Ozzie Trapillo, I think his biggest asset that he brings to the team is his power and his anchor. It's not just like his anchor against the bull rush, which is the thing that everyone talks about when we're talking about our left tackle, Braxton Jones, is, hey, this guy, he gets pushed back. Well, Ozzie Trapillo, it's not just that he doesn't get pushed back. He can oftentimes displace a pass rusher or stop their momentum with one arm. He sticks an arm out. He gets one arm on you, and their momentum is just gone. And that's just, to me, he has that unreal power. And if you can help him with speed rushers, if you have Komet over there chipping, or you can have your running back chip, I think he has the potential to be a really good left tackle. I know he was better at the right side, and he was honestly dominant at right tackle. His tape's kind of boring sometimes because he gets the job done every.
Yeah, that's just what I said. He's the same down after down after down. He's very technique sound. He doesn't make mistakes. So you got to like that. He's coachable. His dad played in the league, but his
dad also played with Brian Poles. Yeah.
No, his dad died when he was 2 years old. He had a heart attack. And so he really didn't know his dad, but his dad had played for 2 or 3 different teams, including the Patriots. And so it's in his genes to do it. Now, playing left tackle is needed. And I did a little exercise just to see how often, because you see a lot of left tackles in college play the right side, the pros. You don't see right tackle. You don't see that many until I did the exercise. There's a few. And the best tackle in the business now, San Francisco's left tackle, was right tackle at Oklahoma.
Yep, he was. Trent Williams, yeah.
Yeah, and there's been a few more. So it has happened. How about Tyron Smith, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, the Cowboys, long time.
Okay, he was a right tackle in college. So it has been done. But at the same time, I think what you're going to see until Braxton is ready, you're going to see this kid, Namagaji, split time.
Mm-hmm. I think that's just we have the perfect opportunity with Braxton coming back from that off-season ankle surgery. It's almost like, hey, Braxton, we're not going to rush him because we have time to give these other guys reps. And that's exactly what Karan Amagaji needs. And same with Ozzie. When you're a rookie, every single rep you can get is important, especially
on the line.
With the first team. And you can actually get in there, get used to Caleb's cadences when he's calling the snap count, get used to playing next to Joe Tooney and these other guys on the line so you can get better with your communication on stunts and things like that. So I think these reps are very important, and it gives these guys a chance. Someone else said it. They think there's actually a chance that Karan Amagaji could be the starting left tackle this year. And I'm not going to rule anything out, especially if Braxton comes back.
The best guy's going to play.
You let him battle.
He goes, I want the 5 best playing. And that's what's going to happen. And hey, if you got a good guy sitting on the bench, so what? You got a good football team. Jurgens, who the Eagles took real high in the second round a couple of years ago, he had to sit and wait for Kelsey to retire.
I mean, that's something the Eagles have done consistent. And this is something I tried to counter back at fans this offseason when I was talking about drafting specific players, and they'd say you don't draft not a running back. I'm sorry. They'd say you don't draft someone who doesn't start their rookie year in the first round. And I'm like, well, or even the second round, they'd say. But you look at teams the team that just won the Super Bowl, the Eagles, if you look at all of their recent first-round picks, none of them started. Jalen Carter didn't start as a rookie either. He was setting behind Fletcher Cox. And then the other defensive tackle they had was the last year's first-round pick, Jordan Davis. So they had two guys ahead of him.
And then they had the Williams kid who just made a fortune in free agency.
Yep. And then also Nolan Smith, who they drafted. He was behind Josh Sweat. They had other guys. You just mentioned Cam Jurgens. He's behind Jason Kelsey. So drafting guys and letting them learn behind talented or even all-pro players is sometimes really smart to do and can work out better for the long run, rather than throwing these guys out and just throwing them into the fold as a rookie and saying, hey, get what you get.
No question. You know what? The best thing to do is play them when they're ready to play, but there's situations where you got to play them. And that's really been the case the entire 3-year reign of Flus, was these guys had to play. There just wasn't enough talent for them to sit and learn. I don't know if there's enough talent now. We're going to find out. Okay, in the second round, you take Shamar Turner from Texas A&M with that final pick in the second round. He may not be a starter, but he's going to play in the rotation. And on the defensive line, it doesn't matter if you start. The important thing is how many snaps you get in the rotation.
And what you do with those snaps. If you can be productive with those snaps, that's even better. And Turner's a guy, I think too many people right now are writing him off as a defensive tackle because that's what he was labeled. This is a guy who came to Texas A&M as an edge rusher. And during 2023, the year where he was an edge rusher on one side and Bengals first-round pick Shamar Stewart is the edge rusher on the other side, and our guy, Shamar Turner, had 6 sacks compared to 1.5 from the guy who won the first round.
And then they went and got Scorton in the portal.
Mm-hmm. And so
for this year, but they kind of ruined Scorton. I mean, he was like 255, 258 at Purdue, and then they bulked him up to 280 plus to play at A&M, and his production went down, but hey, he still went in the second round. The guy's a heck of a player.
That's another guy. I think if he would have fell just a little bit more, I think he's a guy we might have considered.
Well, it's funny because Poles was asked that, and said when they got it, this is the way it sounded anyway. And I don't know, you may have heard it, you may have not. I think it was when he was on with Cap on ESPN. He was on for like 25 minutes, and it's on YouTube, so you can listen to it.
I watched that one once.
Okay, well, it was like, I don't think Trapillo was necessarily the highest guy, but he was an offensive lineman, and they really liked him, and they didn't think he'd be there the next time around. So they took him. And really, that was at 52, and the other pick was, or 56, and the other pick was 62, I think. So there wasn't a lot of picks in between. So they probably, worked out well. I thought for sure they were going to take an edge. They had opportunities to take an edge. They didn't do it. So it tells me some of these guys that fans liked, we liked, they weren't all hot to trot about.
Yeah. And I think that's a possibility there when you consider where we grabbed a Shamar Turner. I think Scorton is a guy who you can compare a little bit to Turner if you keep him outside of the edge. I think Turner is more versatile where you can move him around the defensive line more, but he has just the same amount of upside as an edge rusher. I think people are overlooking him as a guy who could potentially come in and really contribute outside at edge. Everyone sees him as a defensive tackle, but this team needs more help on the outside at edge. So I do see him getting reps there, and I don't think we're going to play him at 290. I think he's going to play somewhere between 260, which is what he played at in 2023, and 280. I don't think we're going to have him drop.
We'll find out soon enough.
I don't think we're going to have him drop all the way to 260, but I think he's going to go a little bit less than what he played at last year.
We don't have a time on him, which doesn't matter because he had a little injury, so he didn't do any testing at the combine or the pro day, but his tape is real impressive. The way he comes off the ball is really quick. And that, I watched all 24 tapes, so he's playing inside. There were snaps when he was playing like at a 5 technique and stuff in 24, but not say out at a 6 or a 7. But he's got a lot of athleticism. He's strong as hell. That's the thing. I mean, he goes up against guys 20, 30 pounds heavier than him, and he handles them with no problem whatsoever.
And the other thing that really impressed me was if you look at his burst and his kind of his agility, his speed off the line of scrimmage, when you look at him when he was 260 in 2023, and then you look at him last year at 290, and he honestly, I didn't see much of a difference. He was still very explosive. He still was fat. It didn't look like a guy who would put on 30 pounds of weight. He didn't look visibly slower, and he didn't look like he was walking in the sand or anything. So he's a guy who I think, even if he can play at 290 and still be that explosive, you never know what Dennis Allen's going to love this guy. And I think he's going to be probably the sleeper in this draft class that people really aren't talking about a lot, who's going to come out and make an impact early on.
Oh, he's going to play. There's no question. And the guy, you think, okay, they're going to keep 4 or 5 DTs. Well, if you go with Gervon and Biggins, and then you got
Grady Jarrett,
and this guy, that's 4. So who's your 5th? And you got a guy that was the first pick in the 3rd round just 2 years ago, who was hurt last year, so he disappointed. Is he going to make a comeback? Is light going to turn on? Or is it going to be like that Williams guy who they picked up for like a 6th round pick?
Yeah, like Chris Williams. Yeah,
who actually played pretty good.
He did. The one thing I'll say about Chris Williams, he has a $3.5 million contract, and right now he's our 5th to 7th defensive tackle. That's an easy $3.5 million to clear off the books because $0 of it is guaranteed. So, with Zach Pickens also being a former draft pick, and then we also have a bigger guy too, that Jonathan Ford, who also
played the last few games.
So,
yeah.
To me, I think Pickens, he's definitely battling for a roster spot right now. But I would give Pickens a slight edge over Chris Williams just because he is a former draft pick. He does have upside. He played out of position in Matt Eberflus's defense, and I liked his college tape. So I
did
hoping.
too. I was really, in fact, when they got drafted, I liked him better than Gervon Dexter.
Oh, really? I thought they were both. I liked Dexter better, but I thought they were gonna. I called them a dynamic duo on the inside. I thought they were gonna be really, really good.
Only based on production. See, Dexter was playing in a 2-gap scheme where he wasn't really attacking at Florida, and Pickens was. So you could see the ability that Pickens had to, get into the backfield, disrupt the run game a little bit,
off the
where
line.
that wasn't what Dexter was asked to do at Florida. He was
more
supposed to occupy space,
read and react, and that's what he would see where the ball is going.
It was a 2-gap player.
Then he would go, yeah. But I think Pickens is a guy who I have labeled right now as a guy who, yes, he's borderline guy to make the roster, but I do believe I'm higher on Pickens than most of our fan base, and I do think he's a guy who can surprise this year. And if Pickens does live up to some of that potential that Ryan Poles saw when we drafted him, our interior of our defensive line can be a lot better. If we get something from Pickens to go with all these other guys as well, and that's another thing that would lead towards maybe pushing Shamar Turner out at edge more. If you have, if Pickens is giving you something, then that leaves you. And I don't think that's one thing with Turner I think people are going to struggle with is giving him a position. People want to just put people at a position, and I think he's a positionless player. He shouldn't be labeled defensive end or defensive tackle.
No,
Label
to me,
him
it's
DL.
let the coaches line them up the way they want to line them up, and that's the way it's going to be. And
he's a defensive lineman. Yep.
How they use them, that's up to the coaches. Total coaching decision. That the the purpose of the draft is to try to bring in new talent. They brought in new talent. Now, to go beyond that, they had no third. But then, the linebacker they take, Hippolyte, however you pronounce his name, from Maryland, I had done nothing on him. So, that was a surprise to me. So right away, I got to go start doing tape. You know what? He's pretty damn good. He's real instinctive. And
did you watch? I did see some holes in his game, but I like you said, I like how he attacks the backfield. My biggest questions with him are in coverage. I saw him when I watch him in coverage, he does the thing that it's probably one of my biggest pet peeves with any linebacker in the NFL. Guarding grass, man. And I saw it most in the Michigan game. There was a play against Michigan when I'm watching Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland's lined up in the slot, and it's a key third down. It's like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7. Colston Loveland's right here lined up on the right side of the line of scrimmage with a corner. He runs a slant to the inside. Hippolyte is right here over the middle. All he had to do is take 2 steps, and he can pick that off and take it to the house. Instead, he just stood there. And it's easy completion to Colston Loveland. Big first down for Michigan. And no, I'm not trying to hate on Hippolyte because he's getting way too much hate as it is. But I think Dennis Allen might not be planning to use him in coverage as much. I think he's going to be a guy that attacks the line of scrimmage. He's going to be really good against the run. And I think he's a guy who we may even see, because Dennis Allen did this thing in New Orleans the entire time he was there. NASCAR package, where he didn't have any defensive tackles on the field. He'd have 4 defensive linemen or 3 defensive ends and a linebacker. There's a possibility he's going to do that with Hippolyte at times, I think. And he could even rush the passer on 3rd downs. That's something I'll watch for. I think Dennis Allen is going to – our defense has been very vanilla with Matt Eberflus over the last few years.
Who can rush the passer from the linebacker position? And he's done it. He just hadn't done it here.
TJ Edwards. Well, I think Tremaine can too.
Yeah. Edmonds has played – when he was at Buffalo, he lined up outside the game at times.
Yeah. Edmonds is the guy you could blitz him right off the edge. You could just have him stand up.
Right. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting how they use these guys, how he bounces back, because he didn't have the season that a lot of fans thought he'd have. But, he's a good player. He got the money he got because of the plays he made in Buffalo. Yeah. And you can't take that away from him. He didn't all of a sudden become a bad football player.
100%. And I mean, when I watched that Buffalo tape, he was one of, if not the best coverage linebackers in all of football.
No question.
The year before we signed him. Now, I have not seen that same coverage on tape the last 2 years. Part of it, I don't know if it's the scheme, what we're asking him to do, but I have seen it. I still think he's good in coverage. I think a lot of people are just completely throwing it out and acting like he's not. There's a lot of times where his coverage is so good, you don't hear his name for large parts of the game.
Oh, he can take people out of the game.
Yeah, he's in coverage. He's making good plays, but the quarterback's throwing away from him because he's good in coverage. And I think that's some fans don't understand. A lot of fans hating on Tremaine Edmonds. I got a report that Ben Johnson actually said during his presser that he's really high on Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards. But right now they're looking for their 3rd linebacker, and that spot is wide open. So that's something I think we all know. I think Hippolyte has a chance to win that job. Noah Sewell is a guy who hasn't done much in the NFL.
Hasn't done anything, really.
And
he's been banged up both years.
Yeah, can he take a step up this year? He was pretty good at Oregon, but I think Hippolyte's a guy who may end up being our starting Sam linebacker. And if he is, I think that'd be pretty fun. A guy with that kind of speed. What you see what you can do with him.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to see what he can do. When you say starting Sam, though, but do they really have a starting Sam? It's
you saw. I mean,
a player. It's a player that plays 20%.
Yeah.
So Sam Borden played. Excuse me. Sam Borden played probably 20% of the downs. You can go into this one website and it's got the percentage of plays he plays, the exact amount of plays they played. And, I should have done that before, but he didn't play a lot. He played actually more last year than he did the year before. And a lot of it has to do with down and distance and what you're assuming the team they're playing is going to be doing. And do they need that third linebacker in there versus the nickel guy? So, but I'm excited for that. The corner's another guy. Put it this way: if you flip those, the 6th and 7th round pick, put them at 4 and 5, and took 4 and 5 and put them at 6 and 7, there'd be no bitching.
Yeah, I mean, that's true because people like the Luke Newman pick.
Well, I love Luke Newman now.
Yeah, and that was a guy. Anyone who hadn't heard it, Greg actually scouted this guy. He talked about Luke Newman on this show and on the Barroom Network over a month before the draft. So Luke Newman was a guy.
I did him back. I did him back, during the fall, and I did him, for the agents I do work for.
Yep.
And so I'm looking at this guy, and he, played at Holy Cross because before I start looking at the tape, I read the bio. And so he was a starter, a 3-year starter at left tackle at Holy Cross. His freshman year was washed out, the COVID year, so he didn't play that year. So he plays the 3 years, and then he transfers heavy. Now, what I didn't see on tape was the short arms that he ended up having. Didn't look like he had short arms. And
it's harder to see a guard. I mean,
no, that's true. But when he was at guard, here, going from FCS level at Holy Cross to the Big Ten, and this guy didn't miss a beat. Now, and not only that, he was making the line calls at guard. And that's what really excited me because you could see him, he'd be turning around, looking at the quarterback as they come up to the line of scrimmage, and then he'd make some hand signals, not the center, him. And then you'd get down in the stance. And I thought, the more I kept watching, going, if I'm a coach, I'm making this guy a center because he's really smart and he's strong as an ox. So, I do work for the East-West game. I got him in the East-West game, and they put him at center there for a good part of the week. He played both center and guard, and he showed he could play center. So, I'm really, really excited about that pick. He's going to be a backup. He's never going to be a Pro Bowl player or anything like that, but he is quality depth. And if you get a guy hurt, he can step in. Where I really got excited, I originally had like a 5th round grade on him. And then I went back and they played Ohio State. Now, Ohio State, all 4 guys along that line got drafted. So I put that game on and I go, if he plays good against these guys, he's a pretty good player. He not only played good, he won every freaking rep. And so it was like, wow. And then I got really, really excited because he really competes and he is so strong.
Man, he is. And he's a guy who I went back because I have access to the East-West Shrine Bowl practice film. And I went back and watched some of his clips. And I agree with what you said. I think he's a guy, he could probably play guard. He might be okay at guard. But what I see him at is our long-term developmental center. And the guy,
I agree, but he can. What he can do though is you got to have a guy who can play more than one. And here's the thing: so most teams dress 7 offensive linemen.
Yep, you got your swing tackle, and then like a swing.
So you got to have a guy, and you could have the more talented guy not dress because the other guy can play 2 positions.
Yep,
and that's where. Being that he can play guard, and if he ends up being able to play center at the NFL level, at a winning level, he's going to be dressing on Sunday as a rookie.
Yeah, and one of the reasons, last year I think that happened. We've seen that happen. A guy like Bill Murray, who I really liked as a guard. Now he of course got hurt, but when it came down to game day, most of the time, our backup swing interior guy was Ryan Bates because he could play guard or center. And even going back years before that, it was Lucas Patrick for those same reasons, a guy who could play guard or center. So Greg's point is really good here. You want a guy, usually your 6th or 7th offensive lineman is a guy who could play guard or center. Right now, that guy for us is Ryan Bates. I think this guy, Luke Newman, is a guy who could potentially be that guy going forward. I really like him as a developmental guy. What are your, just give me your quick 20, 30 seconds overall, like just a quick compact scouting report on this guy, what the Bears got on him.
If I could dig up my report, I would, but it's too
just
long.
like top of the, that's what I'm saying, just top of the head, like your thoughts.
No, he's strong. He's athletic. Did you see his testing numbers?
Oh yeah, his RAS.
He had like a 35-inch vertical jump. How many times do you see an offensive lineman jump that high?
And his total score was 9.69, 35-inch vertical. He also
He's
put
got
up
one thing
29
wrong
reps.
with him. He's got 31-inch arms.
Mm-hmm. That's to me, that's not really an issue at guard. I don't, especially at center. If you got a center with 31-inch arms, I don't care. Like that's perfect to me. So to me, this is a guy who really could come in, help this. We need depth at center. I know we got Drew Dahlman, and Drew Dahlman's a guy I really love. But even last year, Drew Dahlman missed 8 games. So you need someone who, if Dahlman does get hurt again, knock on wood, but someone else who can come in and continue that. Ricky Stromberg is on the roster. Doug Kramer.
I'm not a big Stromberg fan. And
that's why I like Newman.
I said it on the other show too. I go, here's a guy I believe was a 2nd rounder or a 3rd rounder for Washington by the old regime. So last year he goes to camp going into his 2nd year, and he'd gotten hurt as a rookie, but he's ready to go at camp, and they cut him. Now, if they liked him, he was hurt when he got cut. They could have done an injury settlement. They could have done something to protect him. They didn't. They just let him go. And that tells me they just said he isn't good enough.
V-Dog asked, do you think Doug Kramer could eventually be our starting center? Because Dan Rochar seemed to speak very highly of. My answer is no. I like Doug Kramer. I just don't see that in him. Yeah, he's just not big enough.
Okay, you go back to when Kramer was at Illinois his final year, and then compare him to Luke Newman at Michigan State last year. No contest.
Yeah, that's a good one. I do like, and actually, speaking of that, I know you said you don't like Stromberg, but I like Stromberg more than I do Doug Kramer for sure.
Yeah, no, I like Stromberg coming out. It's
the fact
Washington
that they gave up
saw
on him.
nothing, and they said, yeah, so we didn't pick him, and we don't think he's got a future, so we're letting him go. And they could have found, they could have IR'd him. They could have done anything you want. They did an injury settlement, let go of him.
Yep, they did have that. Now I know they signed Tyler Biotish and they had some other things going on there, but to me, when it comes to Doug Kramer, I do not think he's an option going forward. Maybe he can get some fullback reps or something, but who knows? And then we get to the guy we skipped one though. One guy we didn't talk about a little bit. This is a guy, Zay Frazier. I'm sorry. His name is it's pronounced Zay. It's spelled Za, but the big 6'3" cornerback out of UTSA, a guy who has traits even remind me a little bit of Charles Tillman. What are your thoughts on Zay Frazier?
Project. He can play press. He's a pretty good press player, and Allen wants to play a lot of press, so he fits that. It's when he's playing in zone, he doesn't look as comfortable as he does when he's just playing press. So did they take him a little high? Maybe. That remains to be seen. But he's a trait guy. I mean, he can jump out of the building. He runs a 4.36. He's tall. He's long. He needs to put on about 10 pounds, and he'll do that. But he's an interesting guy. And you had a defensive back coach in Al Harris who was really jumping on the table for the guy.
And
So
that's the guy right there. Al Harris, I really respect Al Harris. I think he's one of the better DB coaches in the league. And Ryan Poles said it himself that this is the guy that Al Harris wanted. So this is a guy he might not come in and do anything right away, but when you're looking for a guy that's going to be developed by Al Harris, a guy that Al Harris is going to take under his wing in that DB room and have him push whoever that cornerback 2 is. We know Jalen Johnson's locking down one side. We know Kyler Gordon's locking up the nickel, and he's going to move around a little bit too. But then when it comes to that other guy, if Tyreek Stevenson, he needs motivation. And that's one thing this guy will do. But he compares a lot. I think he's a lot similar to Terrell Smith as well. Like those guys are.
Well, Terrell's bigger though. Terrell's was 190 something pounds.
Yeah. But I think they're both 6'3".
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both big and
with long
Terrell
arms.
Smith ran like a 4.42. He's no slowpoke. He tested really, really well.
Yep. 100%. Quick response to Ty. Ty, I actually talked about that just a little bit ago. If you want to rewind a little bit, I didn't hear, but apparently from the press conference, they have instructed him to stay under 300 pounds. That's to me. I was thinking he's probably going to play around 280. That's probably my guess, but we'll see. But I do expect him to play at edge some. I think he's a defensive lineman, not a defensive tackle. He's going to play all over is the bottom line. And then the final guy, the final draft pick, one of my favorites, man.
Monangai.
Monangai is so fun to watch. What I said to fans, because fans are like, we neglected the running back position. We just took a guy in the 7th round
running back in the 7th round.
But look, this was one of the deepest running back classes I've ever seen. And then with Kyle Monangai, right? He's a guy, what I said to fans, if you're one of the fans that watched all these Ashton Genty highlights and you really fell in love and wanted an Ashton Genty, do yourself a favor and give Monangai a chance, because while he's not Ashton Genty, his running style,
he's a poor man's Ashton Genty.
Yeah, exactly. His running style is a lot like Ashton Genty's. He bounces off guys. He runs with that low center of balance. He has good contact balance. He's shifty.
Real good contact balance.
Not as quick.
He's shifty. He doesn't have.
Won't break as many tackles.
He doesn't have the 4.4. Well, we don't know what Genty runs.
We don't know.
He's quick, but I thought this guy would run 4.55. Just estimating on what he looked like on tape. Another guy I had done during the year. In fact, I did him real early. I did him back in July, and then they had me redo him in like October. And I thought he was going to be a day 3 pick. Thought he'd be a lot higher in the 7th, though. But just an interesting guy. And the guy right after they took him, the guy that just jumped out at me as the name was, player that I had in New York for a long time, years, like 40 years ago, was Joe Morris.
Oh,
okay. And Joe was 5'7" and about, he listed 190 when he came out. He probably played at 210, but the same kind of body this guy has.
Yep.
But this guy, you never see him get knocked backwards. He's a willing blocker, and he'll stonewall some people. The only question mark I have is, he can catch the check down pass. He can, the little flat pass he can check. But like on the angle route, even at the combine, you watch the combine workout, he flubbed one of those angle route passes. I don't think, to me, he's got Khalil Herbert type hands. You're not going to trust him 100%. Maybe a little better than that.
I'd like to see that one. I wish we would have seen more. And that's one where I can't draw a definite conclusion, because you see him in the passes he got in games in college. Now, they weren't downfield targets. It was a lot like Genty.
Right.
A lot of
that's why I put a little. I watched all
it looked
his
like he had
stuff.
soft hands. Yeah, I mean, he caught very well. Didn't drop a pass. His combine workout, like you said, I watched that. There were definitely a couple drops there. So maybe he doesn't have the best hands in the world, but that's something I think the jury's still out a little bit. but I do see him more as
can
an
work
early
on
down
that.
guy.
I mean, just get a guy in the jugs machine and have him catch a bunch of balls, and all of a sudden it becomes second nature.
Yep.
But it seems like on some routes he kind of fights the ball a little bit instead of just like Luther. He just sticks his hands out, and it's like he's got a catcher's mitt there, and the ball sticks to his hands.
Okay. He plucks the ball out of the air too.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah.
Luther
So
Burden.
I mean, it's just a different type of things. But if you're going to use him on a screen or a check down, he's going to be fine. That's not a problem. It's anything. He's not going to do the stuff like Gibbs did in Detroit.
Yeah, or Travion Henderson could do.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not just that. That's not Monungai's game right
But did
now.
you see his pass blocking?
Yeah, he'll stick his nose in there.
Mm-hmm. He's a guy. He's not afraid to come up
He's a
and
tough guy now.
Come up and hit someone as a pass blocker. And he said it. He said it himself. It was one of the first things he said when he was drafted. He said, my quarterback's not getting touched back there. He said, so I really like that mentality. And that's another thing. We know Ben Johnson, no block, no rock. If you're not blocking anyone, you're not getting the ball. And I think that's really going to help with our wide receiver room and the competitiveness there, because when you have guys, we saw people have taken shots at DJ Moore and said, maybe he's not as interested, or he can be a little bit of a diva. That was one of the knocks on Luther Burden coming out too. People were saying when he's not the primary target, his routes aren't as crisp. He's not as engaged. With this Ben Johnson offense, this is the way to get these guys engaged. If you want the ball, you better block. Because if you're out there not blocking, if you're taking plays off when you're not the guy, you won't get the ball. And we have enough weapons on offense to where if someone's a diva, set them down. And that's where this stuff will work itself out over time. And I'm just excited about all these weapons.
They got enough weapons that they can really screw up a defense just with the different packages they want to use.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that's one thing Ben Johnson's going to do a lot of is it's going to be a lot of formations mixed in here. It's not going to be all looking very similar, and a lot of over the last few years, our formations have been pretty vanilla. We'll mix it up a little bit, but there's a lot of standard formations, and you see a lot of the same things on tape. Where when you watch the Lions, they're always doing something different. They're always doing something creative. And they're also, one thing they do is they'll give you a look where they'll throw out of a look, right? But then they're going to give you that same look and they're going to run it 4 or 5 times. And they're going to give you little variations of things that are different that look alike. And that's what really confuses defense. And I'm really excited about that.
Well, you go back to his introductory presser or shortly thereafter. He said, if you think I'm bringing the Detroit playbook here, you're nuts. He said, yeah, I'm making this thing out of what we have.
Yep.
And what he has today is different than what he had 2 weeks ago before the draft. Mm-hmm. And, so it's going to be really interesting because we talked about it 2 weeks ago. To me, Colston Loveland can be your move tight end. He can also play X. Hell, he can play in the slot. He can do a lot of things. And now you got, the other receiver. And
well, think about this. What about this package? Because this is something that someone said, and I'll talk about. I do want to talk about DeAndre Swift in a second, but think about this with all those weapons, right? When you do spread it out, okay, you got Cole Kmet in line at tight end. You got Colston Loveland spread out wide. You got DJ Moore. You got Rome Odunze. Let's say you motion Luther Burden into the backfield, or DJ Moore, who's even done that a little bit in his career. But both of those guys,
Luther did play a little running back in some formations at Missouri.
And he would also do just that, where he would line up out wide, motion into the backfield, and then take a pitch or take a handoff or even fake to him and go somewhere else. So he has that experience too. But when you have that many weapons and you have guys like DJ Moore and Luther Burden, Both of those guys are built kind of like running backs. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
No question.
And then I want to quickly bring up DeAndre Swift because I talked about this yesterday. I don't think most of our fan base even knows that this guy had 1,350 total yards last year with a mediocre offensive line.
Mediocre, you might be being kind.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just a bad offensive line. Shane Waldron was our play caller most of the year. We had a rookie quarterback, and DeAndre Swift, everyone talks about him like he had about 350 total yards last year. Now he
had like 950 yards rushing.
Now, here's the thing that I think one of the reasons why people is when he was in Philadelphia in 2023, he had over 1,000 yards rushing.
Right.
This year or last year, he did not, but he had more total yards because he had 480 receiving yards, putting him at 1,350 total. It was the best season of his career in total yards. I think Swift is a guy who, if you look at all the additions that were made to this offense, if you give Swift the same opportunities he got last year, I think he could put up 1,500 total yards this year. And that's not a stretch at all in my mind. That's only 150 more yards than he had last year. Now, will he get those opportunities with all these other weapons? That's the biggest question to me. And I think maybe not.
Well, it's who's going to be running back number 2, and how often is that guy going to play? Now, who was it? Poles in that same interview on ESPN. He talked highly of Roschon. Seeing Roschon coming back and turning around because he's feeling better, yada yada yada. So a lot of people want to count him out. You can't count him out. He's too talented.
Yeah, and Roschon's a guy. He's also a very good pass blocker. He has underrated speed. He's a hard worker. He's a guy that players love. He's a guy who was really beloved down at Texas. And Roschon, if it wasn't for the concussions, Roschon has ran really well in his limited opportunities in Chicago. So he's another guy. You can't overlook him. But I'm really high on Monangai. So I think one of those two guys, Roschon or Monangai, could be the biggest reason why Swift doesn't repeat those numbers that he did last year. Because I think Ben Johnson wants a more physical guy to run on early downs. When you come in and you want to run on first and second down, I think we're better off with that guy being Monangai or Roschon, and then bringing in Swift as more of a change of pace guy, mixing him in throughout series, rather than giving him the ball as often on first and second down and trying to run in between the tackles like we did last year.
Yeah, that'll be interesting how it all plays out. And those are really valid points. We just got to see, how the mad scientist sees it and works it out when he's putting together his book.
I like that. The mad scientist, Ben Johnson. 100%. Let me see.
No, what I wanted to hit, because I sent you a note. So they signed everybody but the second rounders.
Yep.
Yesterday. And I think that might take a while to get those guys done. And probably Burden more so than Trapillo and Turner. And the reason being is the wide receiver Higgins from Iowa, who the Texans took at 34, they gave a fully guaranteed contract to. It's the first second rounder to get a fully guaranteed 4-year contract. Okay, now when one guy gets it, now they all want it. Yep. And now over the last few years, the percentage of guaranteed money on the second round picks has been, climbing. And the high second round picks have been getting money into their third year. Nobody had gotten it into their fourth year, as far as I know. I'd have to, look at all the contracts. And yesterday's the first one, but he's 34. So 33 is going to want it. And then because he's 34, 35 through 40 are going to want a fully guaranteed contract. After that, it might slide down. But I think that's going to lead to tougher negotiations. So where a lot of these guys are getting signed all around the league, you watch the second rounders are going to be held up because of that one contract yesterday.
Yeah, and that's tough, man. That puts us in a tough situation. I mean, where he's at, so close to the first round, I wouldn't be mad if we gave Luther the fully guaranteed. I mean, the money's slotted anyway. There's not really a big difference. They're going to be
the money's the money. It's just
whether or not it's guaranteed. Yeah,
right. And like I say, they've been giving guys 2.5 years and stuff like that, and that's fine.
Yeah,
So, but now to go 4, that means, if you cut them, it's tough for a team to waive them or tough for a team even to claim them because of the guaranteed money. So you can, if he doesn't work out, you can get burned. It just puts a dynamic in there that I get why the agents want to do it. That's a big win for them, but it's going to be tough on the teams. And the Bears this year, they're sitting with 3 2s, and so that makes it even tougher. But now, in fairness, Trapillo and Turner are at the bottom part of the second round.
Yep.
At 56 and 62, I think. So, I don't think that fully guaranteed contract is going to reach them, but who knows? They're going to try. The agent's going to try. There's no question about that. And that's 100%. Why I say it could take a little while to get these guys done.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we can get them done in a timely manner. Right now, it doesn't really matter. They were all at our rookie mini camp, which seems like that has officially wrapped up today. They did have a practice. I see there are some videos and stuff slowly trickling onto the X now. I saw one of Kyle Monungai out there running. So they are back. They did get a practice in today. OTAs are in. Rookie mini camps underway. All these guys are out there. The players officially got their numbers. Hopefully we can get these second rounders signed. I'm hoping Ryan Poles can get that done. I know you think it's going to be an issue, Greg, but I'm hoping they can get that done anytime soon. Anything else you wanted to touch on before we got out of here today?
You got to see. Everybody's going to play the game of, well, okay, Higgins got it at 34. What's 35 going to get? What's 36? So it's going to be a game. Now, then it's going to be 23, just to pick out a number or something like that. What's he get? And like I said, the number is fixed. So you're not negotiating the number. You're only negotiating how much of it is guaranteed.
And the fact that it was Higgins as well. Higgins is a guy who almost every draft analyst had lower than Luther Burden. I could see Burden. I remember they showed a video of Burden when he was at his house, and they called Higgins' name, and it wasn't him. You see, man, he's got that chip on his shoulder. It's going to be tough. I'm hoping, knock on wood, Burden gets signed, no issues. If he wants it all guaranteed, just give it to the man, because he's a top 20 player in this draft, and we got him at pick 39. If that's what we got to do to get him signed.
Well, you just said a key thing. Where was he on the Bears board?
I'm imagining top 20.
Okay, so if he's in their top 30 players, a legitimate first round pick on their board,
yep,
then I would think that you would be
a little more willing.
Yes. Yeah, a little more willing to go the full guaranteed route. And it's just, like I said, the agent is going to, it's not going to carry out into training camp. I doubt that. It's just going to be, you're not going to have it done this week. Like you had all these guys, like I was surprised Loveland already signed. And when you look around the league, a majority of the first rounders have already signed, which is surprising how fast they're getting done.
It's happening quicker every year now. Yeah.
Yeah. So but I think that second round is going to be a holdup for a while. Just, might take until a week before camp. just to clear out, and because the agents, the kid's going to want to get in the camp. The agent's not going to want to hold the guy out, so they'll get it done. It just, it's part of the negotiation game.
Yeah, 100%. I'm hoping that the guys up there get that done, but I'm with you. I think with how good Luther Burden is, I'd be a little bit more willing to give him a fully guaranteed contract even early in the second round, because he's a guy who's first round talent. Easy for me. I don't think there's anyone out there who didn't have a first round grade on him. Even some of the draft analysts I respect the most even had him as their wide receiver number 1 or 2 in this class.
No, I know. But here's the thing, though. It's not only what you had on him. You're trying to protect the integrity of the pick,
the future,
of the contract. And so you may give in. You might have in your mind, we're going to give in, but you're still going to fight it.
Yeah. But I mean, you also have to think, like, just like you said, it's the future of the pick as well, because it's not just next year when you're going for your second round pick again. You don't want to have to start just guaranteeing contracts in the second round every year.
Right.
So,
but the thing is let's say the guaranteed, hypothetical, the guaranteed contracts go up to Burden at 40, or what was he, 39 or whatever. So if that's the case, next year they're going to want to take it to 45. The agents, and gradually get it that the whole second round is a guaranteed round, and that's tough on the teams, especially if you get a guy that busts. Yeah,
that's tough. And I think Luther Burden, we're going to knock on wood a little bit, but I think this is one of the safer choices we've made in a long time. This is a guy who has just a ton of talent. I'm so happy he's on our team, and I think he's going to make our offense so much more explosive. This really is a new era of Bears football where this isn't just defense and running the ball anymore. We have so many weapons on offense, and this is going to be a team that puts fireworks up, scores points, big plays on offense, exciting and fun to watch. I'm excited for it, Greg. And as always, man, I'm really glad you joined me, and I love talking to you every other week, man. It's always a great time. Fans love it too, and always honored to have you on here, my man.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
And then far as everyone else goes, bear down. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. I have a lot more videos on the way, but I'm really excited about this draft class and just the future of this team. I think we're in a great position.
I hope so.
Same.